Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Flyover Live. We're coming to you from Liberty Street on Mass Ave in downtown Indianapolis. Let's get started. Thank you all for joining us for this week's episode of Flyover Live, a weekly podcast talking about the latest sports, entertainment, political news from the eyes of three Midwestern millennials. I am your host, Cliff Dennis, and I'm joined here by Brent Pierce.
Cheers.
And Mark Berry.
Hey, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Mm-hmm. Always great to have you, Mark.
Wow.
And Mark just got back again from mysterious Fort Wayne. He just spent so much time up there.
Yeah. Work? This was it family or what?
What?
You don't really like to talk about it. Okay.
No, work.
Yeah, work.
Yep.
Okay. Word.
But before we get started today, I would just want to remind everyone to check us out on Instagram and Twitter at FlyoverLive and on Facebook at facebook.com/FlyoverLive. All right, so our guest this week is Carlos May. Carlos is what we call in the industry a recovering politician.
I suppose that's one way of phrasing it.
He ran for Congress in 2012, right, against Andre Carson, incumbent congressman for this district, which is the Indiana's 7th.
Correct.
And encompasses most of Indianapolis and Marion County. And now with redistricting, it is exclusively, I think, Marion County. Was it that?
It is. It's on the east, west, and south sides. It's basically County Line Road. On the north side, it does a little jog, a little to the north up to some of the first areas.
Susan Brooks and
and a little down
County,
to about
maybe.
38th in other
Rockford
sections, and
Bowl
then
area.
up to 56th in other areas. So.
Yeah, because I'm at like 52nd in Ralston, and I'm Susan Brooks's district.
Yeah.
But wasn't sure if that was the same district that you ran in, or was that?
No, she's 5th Congressional District.
No, I mean the new maps.
As
if
it was
that was
drawn
the,
up.
Yeah, it was. In fact, it was the first election cycle
Okay.
with
Post
the new
2010.
maps. Yeah,
Okay.
2010 was the old cycle. That was when redistricting happened due to the census.
Cool. And so, little background on Carlos. Went to Wabash for undergrad, right?
Indeed, the best school in the state.
And well, before that, went to Zionsville High School, so for a local Indianapolis guy.
Yep.
And then for law school, went to Thomas Jefferson School of Law in San Diego. And so, a little shout out to TJ. Mark graduated from Thomas Jefferson School of Law.
Oh, excellent.
And I also attended there before transferring to going to McKinney School of Law.
Really?
downtown.
What years were
So-
you guys in there?
Quitter.
Quitter, yeah, right?
I was a dirty transfer student. That's
I graduated in 09.
Oh.
and same for me as well.
Man, you guys make me feel old now. I graduated in 03.
Oh yeah, geez. What do you
I know,
like?
right? 6 years.
Going on 60 or something?
6
Yeah.
years.
Oh man.
But also you've kind of moved on after running for Congress. Now you're the senior policy advisor to Mayor Ballard. Is
Correct.
that right? And before that, I don't know if Brent knew this, but used to work for Indy 11 for a little short period of time. Looks
About
like.
5 weeks, yeah. I was happy there. I was pleased to stay there, and the mayor made me an offer I could not refuse.
I see.
Is one way of phrasing it. The other way of phrasing it would be that he pretty much called the team owner and said, "I'm taking this guy back." So my job was
you
in
had
essence
no say in the
eliminated.
matter. Yeah.
Well, I guess that's good and bad to be wanted, and
Yeah, it's a great
but
problem to
also
have.
to leave a cool sports organization like that.
I know, and it was the first time I'd ever worked in that kind of industry, and so it was really fun. I mean, even though the learning curve was incredibly steep, it was great to get all that thrown at me at the very beginning. And in fact, I told the guys at Indy 11 when they offered me the job, I said, "Well, you guys understand, I've never worked in professional sports. I really don't have any clue." And they said, "But you've got everything else that we need. We can teach you the sports side." So
Yeah.
I said, "Excellent."
Well, plus, I mean, they were effectively a startup, right?
Oh, absolutely.
At that point in
Yeah.
time. So it wasn't like it was, some entrenched, established, professional sports. That's actually a good thing, is what I'm saying. Is
Oh,
that it was kind of
absolutely.
like everybody was learning as they were
Absolutely.
going, right?
Yeah, definitely.
I'm a full disclosure season ticket holder there for the 11, and so I'm a big fan. Go to
That's
most
excellent.
of the matches. So
Are you going to be there on the 10th? Well, this weekend, I should say, on Saturday.
Versus San Antonio, that was going to be on my weekend activities list.
The Scorpions?
I think
Is that
so.
what yeah. I have tickets. So
Well,
unless
you
I'm
will probably see me there.
good. Do you do the BYB section, or where do you sit at? Are you in the suites?
It depends on the weekend.
You don't slum it with the BYB folks.
No,
the
no.
supporters. Yeah.
I sold many BYB tickets, so I've been up in those stands myself. But no,
It's fun.
I've got to give out the Mayor's International Futsal Cup trophy on Saturday. This is the main presentation we're doing during the halftime show.
Yeah.
BYB, for the kids at home that don't know, Brickyard
yeah. The
Battalion.
The Brickyard Battalion. It's the
Folks who kind of originally got...
They effectively spawned the
Yeah.
team,
Yeah,
right?
Professional.
soccer hooligans is another way
Right.
of phrasing
Yeah.
it. You know?
They've
They
been
are.
working towards a professional soccer team in Indianapolis for a long time. So.
Let's just say you don't want your 12-year-old to be in that section,
No,
right?
but it is-
Well, that too.
matches.
It is a very fun
Yeah,
section. that's for
standing
sure.
only, chanting, die-hard fans.
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, before you left Indy 11, what did they have you doing when you were
I was
kind of thrown
director-
into the...
Well, so they hired me as director of international markets. Fancy title. It basically meant I was responsible for reaching out to the international demographics here in Indianapolis in terms of fan base, also to internationally positioned companies for sponsorships, that type of stuff, and then also to any other international entity outside of Indiana or the U.S. that wanted to affiliate with the team.
Okay.
And then partly I started to kind of help with the team players that were coming in from other nations. Show them around Indianapolis, get them acclimated and all that. That was just kind of picking up as we were hiring new players. But then I left.
Okay.
And so that part
'Cause
of the job ended.
We had Guijo Gordon on the show earlier,
Yes.
a few 3, 4, 5 episodes ago now. I don't even know. We're
Yeah,
on
Director
our
of Community
11th show.
Relations.
Yeah. So was Guijo there when you were there?
Yes.
Okay.
In fact, he might have been the 9th hire, 8th or 9th hire, and I was the 11th hire. So
Okay,
he'd been there for a
cool.
while. And in fact, when
The
I went
11th hire for the Indy 11.
That's right.
And you leave 5 weeks
It was meant to be. Well, that
My
part was not meant
goodness.
to be,
Oh,
but yeah, the 11th hire was meant to be. Serendipity sometimes smiles upon me, you know.
So what are some major things you've been doing at the mayor's office? I know policy analyst, that can sound boring to some people, but maybe not to Brent and I.
Yeah, no. So it's a big fancy title, Senior Executive Policy Advisor to the Mayor. Really what I do is I run 3 of the mayor's offices in addition to helping with policy stuff. Now, the policy stuff can range from small to large. Really, that's driven by the mayor, what he wants to do, and then he basically, Carlos and a few others. What do you guys think about this?
Sure.
Give me some information, your feedback, your thoughts, and then I'll make a decision.
Okay.
The actual offices that I run is the Mayor's Office of Veteran Affairs, the Mayor's Office of Latino Affairs, and the Mayor's Office of Special Projects.
Okay.
And that can encompass anything and everything. I mean, one of the items that I just got done doing a special project for the mayor was the mayor's inaugural International Futsal Cup that I
Okay.
referenced
Yeah, I was
just,
kinda
just a
curious
bit ago.
what big projects you've been
That
working on.
was on Pan Am Plaza. We had it about 3 weekends ago on the
It was awesome.
18th, 19th,
Yeah,
and 20th. Yeah. Unfortunately, we only got about 80% of the front page and the next day's Indy Star. I was shooting for 100%, but, as I like to
Wow.
say, that was good enough for government
How'd
work.
you keep your
Yeah.
job?
I know,
With
right?
only 80%?
And that's what I was just saying to the mayor this morning, actually. I said I should have resigned in disgrace for only getting you
Yeah,
80% of the front
80%.
page. But that's one of the types of projects.
Okay.
I've done other stuff in terms of foundations around the city and state
Yeah.
to be a point of contact for it, sports issues related to the U.S. Conference of Mayors, really whatever the mayor decides to throw at me and he says, this is what we want to do next, get it done. And we go.
Yeah. What are any other major projects during your tenure here on your way out the door that you look back on that you? Well, I don't know if you're on your way out the door, but
Well, it's the 6th of October right now. I'd say the way out the door is about
3 months.
About
Yeah.
3 months away, 2.5, 3 months away.
Yeah.
Well, we will find out really in 1 month.
Sure.
But inevitably, whoever is the next mayor, I'm sure they're going to want to bring
Have
on
their
their
own
own staff,
people,
their own
right.
people. So chances are, more likely than not, that December 31st would be my last day at the mayor's office.
Sure. So as you look back, any of the other major projects that you had your hand in that people would recognize that have kind of changed in the city?
Well, I mean, I'm sure that you walk around and you see a lot of the stuff, and I had a hand in a good number of it. Some of the stuff that I am personally most excited about isn't the long-term work that's being done in the city, but the short-term cultural impacts. Like, I don't know if you guys came, but when the U.S. Men's World Cup soccer team was playing, and we shut down Mass Ave.
Sure.
You know, I did that along with Indy 11, but it was the mayor that came to me and said we should do something.
Right.
And
Just the
so,
logistics of making that happen for
well,
everybody.
not just the logistics, but the conception of it, the implementation of it. How do we want to do this? What factors do we want to include in this event? How do we want to phrase it? How do we want to put it together? You know, all that stuff. But it was awesome because I don't know if you guys saw in the newspaper the very next day the photo from up top of one of the buildings that shot down
It's
on
on
the
my
crowd.
phone still.
Yeah, it was like 10,000 people. I mean, it was incredible. You know,
I think that you all anticipated like 3,000.
three. That was what internally I was saying to the mayor. We're probably going to get about 3,000 people. It's a short turnaround time from when he told me. I think we had about a week of planning. So it was really. The mayor says we should do something for this. Carlos, figure it out. Now, my original thought, and I had approached Indy 11 with this, is let's do something at the city market. But that became a little bit too unwieldy in terms of traffic, in terms of how we set everything up, logistics, and just the location. Whereas Mass Ave, cultural area, cultural district, everybody knows that you can find anything you need
young
on Mass Ave.
professional, the right audience to target.
Exactly, and so it was perfect, and we shut it down, and that was great. So that was one of my highlights, really, because it showed that if even with a short turnaround time, city government can operate very efficiently, put on an event that everyone that has an interest in it will have a very fun and good time.
Yeah.
You know, so I like that very much. Another one would be the Indiana Latino Expo. The mayor approached me. This would have been, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago now, and he says, you know, Carlos, I want to do something big for the Hispanic Latino community. I don't know what, so get it done, figured out. Okay, let me put my thinking cap on. But now it's been in existence 5 years. I ran it out of the mayor's office the first year, and then we spun it off to a 501c3. It's now its own independent organization with its own board of directors, its own executive director, their own offices. And so that's really, it's a highlight because I know in 40 years when that thing is still going, it's like, you know, I started that, not by myself. I mean, there was a core group of people, you know, but it was the
You
mayor
helped
said,
to
get
start
something
that,
done.
and it's one of the things that'll last for
exactly. So it's the stuff like that for me personally has been some of the most impactful, fun things that I've done for the mayor. And luckily, I have been exposed to every agency and every department within city government. So just having learned what it is that city government does, because when I started at the city, I'd never worked in government at all, let alone at a high level. And so it was fun to get exposed to all of that, to really understand what is it that my city does, how do we do it, and where are we going to grow from here.
Yeah.
It's nice that you have a little leeway on these projects too. I want to do something for the World Cup, get it done.
Yeah.
Or do something for the Latino.
Yeah,
get it done.
that, you know, and that in that regard, I consider myself extremely lucky. I report directly to the mayor and no one else, and for whatever reason, he likes me and trusts me and has said, you know, he does a good job. I mean, I don't know. I resigned from the mayor's office twice, and he keeps sucking me back in. So either I'm a glutton for punishment, or I've done something good enough for him that he sees value in having me back on his team.
Yeah.
Is that typical for the mayor? Is he like less of a micromanager and more of he empowers folks that he trusts and lets them do their job?
Absolutely. In fact, I wouldn't say that he is a micromanager. Now, there are certain specific things that he has a very huge interest in, and in which case he will keep abreast of all the details, but he still does not micromanage the individuals that are in charge of it. He is more of here's what I want to get done, get it done, but you get to determine the method by which we get it done.
Right, big
As long as
picture
the outcome-
guy, but like, listen, I
Exactly.
know you to do good work, I trust you, make it happen. sort of
Absolutely.
approach.
Yeah. And so I've been very lucky in that regard that I've in fact, basically my entire tenure with the city, with the exception of the first year and a half, has been a direct report to the mayor. So.
And a style of leadership that you think people should mimic? I mean, because I think there's a lot of folks out there that, you know, you see politicians of all stripes, leaders, business leaders of all stripes, and kind of, I don't think people talk about leadership enough in terms of what it really, how big of a difference that makes as just a nonpartisan issue. Just a good leader makes a huge difference regardless of the letter after their name. So is that a kind of style of leadership that you'd advocate for anybody to follow?
Oh, most certainly. I mean, when it comes to politicians, and you know, I have to unfortunately now include myself in that group, having run for office and won the primary. But I always like to say that there are two types of politicians: those that want to be somebody, and those that want to do something. And the vast majority just want to be somebody. They don't really give two wits about what is it that we're doing. Is it the right thing to do? Most of the times they think about, is it the easy thing to do? Or alternatively, will this allow me to get reelected? And that to me is so very unfortunate. And the mayor is not like that at all. He just says, look, this is what's right. We need to get it done. Now let's get it done. you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. But with that mindset, in my opinion, you are advocating and leading based on what is best for, in the mayor's case, the city, as a congressperson, your district,
Right.
as opposed to just what's going to get me reelected.
Right,
Right.
right.
And I like that very much. And the mayor, I think, could have won a third term. He said, no, I've accomplished what I came here to do. It's time to let the next person take it. And you rarely see that kind of self-term limiting, right?
Yeah. What's that look like? Like if you're just from, and maybe selfishly I'm asking, like just from my perspective, as an advisor to the mayor, is there a Monday? How many folks have your title? You know what I mean? Who's in the room with the mayor Monday morning, or setting the week's agenda?
Right.
Or
Well,
whatever?
Monday morning is when we have our cabinet meeting, and so the entire cabinet is present. To your prior question, who else has a title like mine? Nobody. Everyone else is director of X, Y, or Z.
Some department.
Some department, because they run one agency, one department. I run three in addition to whatever miscellaneous stuff the mayor needs me to do. So that's why I think I got the more nebulous title, but really it's just a bunch of words in front of my name. I get to make a direct impact day to day on what the city does and how it operates. There probably 15, 16 people show up to the Monday morning cabinet meetings. They kind of set the agenda. Really, it's us updating the mayor. Here's what's going on this upcoming week. Here's what happened last week, and any other kind of concerns that might pop up. At that point, then the mayor, if he has any kind of follow-up questions or needs or whatever the case might be, he'll point you, and you. I need to see you in my office when we're done here.
Okay.
It could be 2 to 3 people. It could be 1. It's really just issue dependent at that point in time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On a larger scale project like the criminal justice complex or something like that, there'd be multiple people in the room. On a smaller project like the World Cup viewing party, there's 1 or 2 people in the room.
Yeah.
So it's really just issue dependent.
Yeah, it's just, because I think a lot of times people, I don't know, because, when you go through layers of government, people might not quite understand that, even at a local level, the mayor, whoever it may be, is charged with a ton of different duties, right? So,
Oh, absolutely.
So therefore, going right back to leadership style, if you are confident enough, sort of like in yourself and who you've surrounded yourself with, because you could not just get bogged down on every detail of government, right? As
Nothing would
mayor
get
and be
done.
successful,
Yeah,
right?
nothing would get done.
Yeah, you charge the folks you trust with taking on the massive operation of governing the city, right?
But not only that, but you've hit upon a very important point here. It's not just the micromanaging as the leader, as the mayor, to not be able to get stuff done if you're going to micromanage to that degree, but it's also, is your staff, the people you surround yourself with, are they going to be able to grow professionally and individually so that you can trust them with these big projects? Because if you're continually micromanaging, harping, questioning, pointing out, the individual whom you've officially, and I use the air quotes for those of you listening, they officially are in charge of it. They know that they're not in charge of it because anything they do is going to be immediately questioned by their supervisor. So where is the incentive to do better, or to produce, or to or to
Take
really
risks.
work at exactly, or to take
Yeah.
risks?
Yeah.
So micromanaging not only defeats the purpose of being a leader, I think it also defeats the people who work for you and their professional development.
Right.
Yeah.
You don't grow
Exactly.
like you should. whenever
Exactly,
you're-
or as you could, not just necessarily as you
Yeah.
should, but as you could.
Yeah.
Well, you'd mentioned winners and losers on the negative side of things. Anything that you've been involved with during the mayor's office that you're kind of surprised that there was the reaction that there was?
The criminal justice complex. I would say that'd be one of the big
Yeah.
ones. I mean,
I figured I could guess a few, but I
Yeah.
wanted you to speak for yourself.
No, that's one of those where, look, for years, both sides of the aisle here have agreed that there is a need for this. We thought, the mayor's staff and council folks thought that we had enough votes on the council to get this thing passed. We really honestly thought that because of the fact that we had worked with them. Study after study had said, yes, we need a unified one location place. The disappointment was, I suppose, twofold. One, that even with the acknowledgement that this is necessary, needed, and wanted, it then boiled down to partisan bickering. Well, we don't like, the color of the door here, so we're going to say no. Because that's really what it was. It was an issue of degree. Now, certainly there's different ways to finance it. There's different ways to build it. All of these things are degrees on this rubric of, do we need to get it done or not? The definitive answer from both sides is, yes, we need to get it done. Yet we couldn't get it done because of again, minor degrees of difference on how it should be done. But one relevant example, just yesterday, we had a massive brawl in one of the city criminal courts that spilled out onto West Washington Street. I mean, aside from the physical safety aspect of the people who were in that melee,
Right.
the other average citizen who's coming to the city county building to get some work done, to go to the permit office, or the permit office isn't in the city county building, the property
recorder's
taxes, or
office,
recorder's
yeah,
officer,
yeah.
or whatever, they are now exposed to dangerous criminal elements and or spillover effects.
Sure.
So now you're putting someone else at risk, again, because maybe you didn't like the financing could have been done like this, but it should have been done like this. And why should it have been in this one? Well, because then my friend gets a little bit more. Now that to me just seems nonsensical. So that's one of the biggest disappointments, is that both parties knew we needed this. Both parties wanted it. We thought it was going to get done, and then at the last minute, it didn't. That was disappointing.
Yeah. And would you, you really think that the way in which you would kind of classify those differences are a degree, or in terms of degrees, and not any major? Were there any major differences that you think that are legitimate?
Legitimacy is certainly going to be in the eye of the beholder.
Sure.
So I'm not going to impugn the Democrat city county councilors that said, well, we wanted it this way, and then for me to turn around and say that was the wrong way to look at it. I say difference of degrees because, again, on this scale of 0, do we need it? No, or 10, do we need it? Yes. We agree that yes, we need it. Right? So we're starting out at 10, not at 0. And each notch that's different, you're moving back a bit. We moved back, I would say personally, to maybe number 6. So it's still more likely than not that we should have this done. Yet the deal fell through because of 4 notches of difference, 4 degrees of difference. Granted, the degrees to the layperson or even to the expert might seem very, very large, and I can agree with that. But again, if the final outcome is this needs to get done, and we don't want to get it done for purely partisan reasons, using financing is not the right thing, location is not the right place. Okay, you don't like this location, and we didn't like that location. Why don't we just pick one, because we know we need the building, right? So there's the difference of degrees that is kind of sad to me, because we know we need it. It would have saved a lot of money in the long term. It would have given us new facilities. Our jails are not doing well, right? They're just not, right? We need updated jails. And not only that, totally just purely economics. We have 2 excellent companies right here in Indianapolis that could have done a huge amount of the work. That would have created a lot more economic investment in the city. I won't mention all of the companies involved, but 2 that immediately come to my head. Willoughby Industries, they operate approximately 78th and Lafayette, somewhere right around there. I don't know their exact address, but they make the steel inserts for the toilets inside jails and the showers. So that is. Imagine all the money we could have saved hiring that company instead of some company out of California to ship all of this material into here. They're going to have to hire more people. And then another one, J. Pauley Jail Building Company. This is a nationally known company that builds jails all around the U.S. They're right here in Indianapolis, right in our backyard. Those are just 2 examples, 2 companies that would have hugely benefited from this, that would have meant more jobs. It would have meant more money in the economy, and those are the casualties that I really feel the most.
Is it fair to say that, just in politics in general, and this issue, I guess, in particular, that, we can all agree on, yes, something needs to be done, or no, it shouldn't, but the devil's always in the details, right? In my limited knowledge of the process, now, the price tag was
astronomical. It's huge.
It was astronomical.
It's
it was asking
project.
a lot of the public, right?
It's a huge project.
To pony up to make happen. So, I don't know. You don't want to oversimplify, something that's very comprehensive, complex, and expensive, right?
Yes.
What do you think, like in a perfect world, because listen, another issue that sort of precipitates the need for the new center is that we've had multiple inmate suicides, right, in the jails because of a lack of ability to oversight, from jail guards and all that. So it needs to happen, but if you were to use your sort of political hat here in calculus, what's the right set of circumstances, for this to get done? Is it, it can't purely be a D's threw a wrench in it, R's had the right,
it's
thing
definitely
in mind.
not as simple as that.
Yeah.
And that's not. I didn't mean for if you took it that way. For that was not my intent. My intent was to say very simply, both sides agreed that this is needed, that it's necessary, and that we want it. But instead of finding a way to get it done, knowing that that is the end result we want, it became immediately a partisan deal. Well, we don't like the P3 system. Okay, propose something different, but that didn't happen. Well, we don't like the financing. Great, propose something different, but that didn't happen. So the bickering.
Weren't there some back and forth on financing, though? There
Yes,
was
but
some.
after they basically said, no, we're not going to do this, we're not going to vote for it, even though a month prior they said, yeah, this is a good idea, we're going to vote for it. So that's where it became, and I guarantee you this is just pure speculation on my part.
Sure.
When the new mayor is elected, it's going to happen. So why couldn't it happen 5 months ago, but it can happen 2 months from now? And that is purely political. That is nothing but politics.
Do you think,
want their guy
to that
get
point,
credit,
do
we
you
want
think
our
it
guy to
will
get
be
credit.
what gets passed will be what you all wanted passed?
What we wanted was a criminal justice center. That's what we wanted.
The details that you said were rejected.
No, now that might be different. That is inevitably it's going to be different because
Sure.
they're going to bring in new people, they're going to bring in new experts, and so yes.
So it may be cheaper, maybe more expensive, but it'll look different.
Yeah,
than
it'll
what was.
definitely look different, but it will get done. And so again, if it can get done 2 months from now after the election, why couldn't it get done 5 months ago before the election? And that's pure politics right there.
Sure.
And that's the unfortunate part of our system, is that partisanship trumps all because it's that need to get reelected or to get your guy elected, and that's where we have a major fail in our citizenry because we
I know
just don't get out
it's
and
a
vote.
catch though, isn't it? Like I'm tempted
is.
to say sarcastically, if only we could spend all that money without politicians involved.
right?
You
Yeah,
know what I mean? But really, like you have to have elected officials.
You do.
Right.
From the people there
Yeah.
to offer
You do. If
input
not-
and represent their,
Yeah.
I guess, base and their opinions.
Absolutely. If not, we'd be Greece, and look at what's going on over there. I mean,
We don't want that.
A pure democracy. No, we don't.
Did you have a hand in anything to do with the BlueIndy thing? I mean, that's the other thing that's kind of caused a little bit of hay, I guess.
No, I really didn't have much of anything to do with that. That was a different set of folks. That was more in the economic development team. So Deputy Mayor of Economic Development, Director of Enterprise Development, those folks were the ones that really had the bulk of it, of the work on that one.
Yeah, we just had I had an article that just I think came out today or yesterday or something about BlueIndy reaching 100 or 1,500 trips and so just some modicum of success here, but still not me talking, but WTTHR giving kind of pluses and minuses to the positive and negative voices in the community of what they think about it. So
Absolutely. Now, we're still rolling this out. Now, what I think a lot of folks don't understand is that BlueIndy is going out there and holding community kind of tete-a-tetes to get input and buy-in from the local community. So, for example, they'd be willing, if there is a massive neighborhood, let's say, that has a huge interest in this, BlueIndy would be willing to go put a charging station and vehicles right there, and that way the folks of that neighborhood could really take advantage of it. Now, certainly, you're not going to please everybody all the time.
Right.
You're just not. In any program, in any thought process, in any pattern of events where something needs to be accomplished, you cannot, at least my opinion is, you cannot please 100% of the people 100% of the time. To try to do so is just farcical.
Yeah. Just, I guess, on BlueIndy, like has the mayor? I know there's been council disputes. There have been community, neighborhood disputes over, basically, and I consider myself mildly tapped into like indie politics and news and stuff. There are BlueIndy, like 8 charging stations popping up in places that, it almost seems like all of a sudden a switch was flipped and very prime key parking places around town are all of a sudden off limits because of BlueIndy. So, and I know there was a contractual dispute, just given the council, Dems at least, accused the mayor, his administration of maybe moving forward without the right input or oversight from the council with the deal. Has that been a sort of like in the inter sanctum, kind of an ongoing a discussion anyway amongst the mayor's group?
It's certainly been discussed. I can't really talk about any of the specifics just due to the nature of the business.
Sure.
But what I can say is this: we've come to the realization that there should be more community buy-in, especially when it comes to where are the spots and charging stations going to go. And that's why BlueIndy has now started to really do this increase, like, oh man, you guys were right. We should be talking to the neighbors, not just look at the specific metrics as where is it going to make the most sense economically?
Right.
Where is it going to make the most sense due to the demographics, the young millennials who don't own cars, that this program will hugely benefit? That's what they were looking at up front. Well, when you don't tell people what's going to go in, that's when they start to get angry.
That's kind of where I was going. I wouldn't have said that to begin with because, my gut instinct would be, wow, all right, that's forward thinking. That's something that Indianapolis, at least in theory or should embrace. But I'm seeing these things go in in Meridian Kessler, and these. So I feel like there are, instead of your sort of commercial thoroughfares downtown, you have residential folks that all of a sudden out front of their house or a main corner in their neighborhood have 8 BlueIndy. So you're right about that. Maybe there was a lack of engagement up front from BlueIndy when it comes to maybe popping into a neighborhood association meeting saying, hey, listen. But then again, I think they probably made that on purpose. If they'd have gone to, at least in my neighborhood association, be like, hey guys, listen, we're going to plop 8 charging stations. They would have said, absolutely not. There would have been the biggest shitstorm, pardon my French. So maybe they installed the first set with that calculus in mind that
and I've always been surprised at how parking spaces become the biggest issue when it comes to a new restaurant.
It's the beauty of
a new
local
bar,
government,
shop.
right?
It's always the parking spaces.
Nobody cares unless it's messing with their parking and how far they have to walk to their destination.
But that story from the news, WTHR, I mean, that was what they're getting at. Positive side, 1,500 rides in its first month, good for the community.
Yep.
On the flip side, the negative was parking spaces. It was a gentleman that owns Jazz Kitchen or whatever, and there were some spots that popped up in front of his business, and I can totally see having an issue with that. Because there's I've gone to that restaurant, and it's limited parking.
It is limited parking.
I can foresee some, citizens / business owners unite, and there's some, big to do over the fact that there was virtually no consultation when it comes to, all of a sudden plopping out. I know it's public space, right? The city can do with those public streets as they see fit. Doesn't mean they should.
But also look at it on the flip side. And I know the owner of Jazz Kitchen. I've met him numerous times, so this is not a negative for him. But imagine this. You got a young millennial, doesn't have a car, says, you know what? I can actually rent this BlueIndy right here. I want to go to the Jazz Kitchen, and I can park it right in front there.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't have to mess around. And then guess what? After I have a few drinks, I'll just take an Uber back home. If we had a much more robust public transportation system, I don't think there would be as much of an outcry because now it's multimodal. Now maybe you rent the BlueIndy car to go from location A to B. You have a few drinks there, and you decide, you know what? I want to go to the restaurant down the road. You hop on a public trolley or a public tram. You guys from San Diego. I did that when I was going to school.
Yeah.
You pop in there, and then from there you say, you know what? I'm just going to take a bus line back home because I've had too many drinks. I can't drive. So if we had a much more robust, I think this would be less of an issue.
Oh, sure.
And again, you can't please everybody all the time.
Yeah.
Sure.
But also, I must say this: the citizenry should become engaged because when we did with BlueIndy have these open forums, almost nobody showed up.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where
it's always after the fact.
It's always that, But come on, if you want it to be engaging, you want your voice heard, you got to show up. You got to step up and show up to the plate. If not, all you're doing is kind of hindsight, retroactively whining about it. Which okay, you can do that, but is that going to solve the problem? No, because the problem's already been put literally sometimes right in your front door.
Yeah.
Well, on a more serious note, I have a couple other news stories I wanted to get to, and one of them being
I thought we just decided there's nothing more serious than parking spots.
That's true, we did.
Right.
Locally.
So you're telling me that's not a serious issue?
No, what I'm getting at is the community college in Oregon where they had that shooting, and 9 people passed as a result of that shooting. That's not including the shooter. I'm not counting him in that number. And 9 people were injured. And I bring that up, and maybe this is an unfair correlation, but it just so happened that when I was printing off stories in preparation for today, then there's an article about 2 teenage girls getting shot in Indianapolis in their car over the weekend. which then led me down the internet rabbit hole to
Of course.
start looking into crime statistics and everything about the city. And I think we passed 100 murders last week.
We're at 106 as of yesterday.
And then a study. Then the rabbit hole continued, and then I found a study from is it Savi SAVI.org?
Yes, a very excellent website. For those of you who do not know it, I highly recommend you jump on there.
So I started reading their latest report they put out in September, and basically can be summed up in one sentence: that Indianapolis's nonviolent crime has gone down over the last 10 years or so, and that the violent crime has ticked up a little bit.
Well, specifically, I would say like murders have ticked up a little bit because there are other aggravated violent crimes that have not gone up. Rape being one of them,
Sure.
just as an example.
Yeah. And so, inevitably these things, as soon as the tragedy's over, then it ends up being a highly politicized thing. And it just seems like it's unfortunate that these events have to go immediately into politics, and it can't be more of a pragmatic approach of what are really the issues here that we can't figure out some way to deal with these problems. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of put that out on the table, and then let you all.
That works.
Yeah, something real kind of simple and light to toss out there.
Perfect,
exactly.
airy. We can relax, take a little siesta
Right.
here.
Right.
Here's what I'll say about that. A few comments. Certainly, the immediate knee-jerk reaction of a lot of people is going to be, well, we need more gun control laws in place. Second thing they might say is like, well, there's crazy people out there, and crazy people are going to do. There are valid arguments all around on all sides when it comes to mass shootings like this. But I will step out on a limb here and blame really one entity, one nebulous group above all others, and that's the media. Let me give you the example here. If we, as a national media, decided the people that do this are going to get no airtime, we're not going to mention their names, we're not going to put up their manifestos, we're not going to put up their pictures, this would die down. The guy who did this, and I'm specifically not mentioning his name, did not give him any credence, but this guy put in his manifestos, it seems like the more people you kill, the more that people will pay attention to you.
Yeah.
Or it seems like it's everyone else is crazy, I'm not, so I need to prove this to everyone else. Now, it's salacious, it appeals to the prurient interests, so of course the national news media is going to push that. Why? Because they sell more ad space. But here's the hypocrisy and the stupidity. CNN, just the other day, the local law enforcement official had a press conference, and he was talking about how the focus for me is going to be on the victims. I am not going to mention this guy's name. I'm not going to put his face up, because all this does is further buttress his entire argument that the more people you kill, the more famous you will become. These people do it because they want attention. We are such a fame-obsessed society now. Everybody needs their 15 minutes, and then they try to extend it. These people get 15 minutes by doing stuff just like this. So then CNN plays the clip of this officer saying that and says, but we are under no such restrictions, so we're going to go ahead and mention his name, his statistics, his manifesto and all that. If we as news media, and I'm not part of the news media, I don't know why I say we, the news media, but if we as society, and then the news media in particular, didn't give these people one iota of our attention, we wouldn't have people going out doing this. Let me rephrase that, because people are going to attack me on that statement. I think that there would be less of these circumstances happening because we are not giving them the attention that they so desperately want. So desperately want. Now, when it comes to gun control, should there be laws put into place to help control individuals who maybe shouldn't own guns? Absolutely. We have some of those laws in place already. The one that I find most humorous, though, is when people say, well, we need more gun control laws in place, like we need more permitting, more background checks, more fingerprints, all that. Great. Guess what? We already have that. And guess even more what? Criminals, by definition, are not going to go through those processes, right? I have a lifetime gun permit, concealed carry permit. I own multiple weapons. I've never killed anybody. I've never shot anybody. Now, maybe it's because I'm not crazy in the head. Maybe it's because I don't need my 15 minutes of fame. More to the point, though, I'm a law-abiding citizen. Law-abiding citizens are going to follow the law. The criminals will not. By definition, they will not. So is more law going to solve the problem of criminals getting illegal guns? Absolutely not. Maybe instead of gun control, we should have bullet control. Start to charge $5,000 a bullet. Tell me how quickly gun crime is going to go down. Alternatively, how about, and the mayor actually tried to do this, if you commit a violent crime with a gun, and that means you don't even have to pull the trigger, you just show it, we're going to automatically add 30 years onto the sentence. Boy, if that's not a deterrent, I don't know what is. But again, some of these people don't care about deterrence. They grow up on this whole I've got to be tough, I've got to brandish my weapon and show people how tough. What happened when I was growing up? If you had a beef with someone, you got in a fight, you resolved the issue, and that was it. You moved on.
Yeah.
Now, for even the slightest, this guy disrespected me. Why? Because he looked at me. What if he has a boss eye that just happens to look in that direction through no fault of his own, and now he gets killed? Why? Because he disrespected someone. If you don't have respect to give, you're going to always assume that someone is disrespecting you. And if your first reaction is to pull out a gun and start shooting people, you are never going to be a productive member of society. You're just not, in my personal opinion.
I see Brent fidgeting over here. I feel like you've got
Not fidgeting at all.
couple of points.
Jump out.
No, I don't. When you first started out and you said, listen, folks say this or folks say that, there is some merit to everything.
Absolutely.
I totally agree. But I don't know if I go with you to say that CNN's why mentally ill people shoot people. I don't know why I would go, if I would go there with that, as far as that's the primary source of mass shootings in this country. I don't think that's the case.
I wouldn't say it's the primary source, but guess what? It gives ideas to others who do it. I mean, when you have 24-hour nonstop coverage of an event like this, like we do with the national media, you've got the next mentally challenged, no, not challenged, but mentally ill individual out there saying, no one pays attention to me. No one knows who I am. But this guy, look at everybody.
I think you're in a bit of a danger zone whenever you start to begin to criticize the First Amendment right to report for mass shootings. So I think it's a little bit of a misdirected criticism of what actually is
I disagree.
This country.
I disagree. Now, there's certainly a First Amendment right to report on it.
I think maybe what Brent is getting at is that maybe the focus should be more so on the fact that mental illness and the treatment of that gets kind of shuffled aside.
Or focus on the victims. Or focus on what led to it.
Right.
Don't focus on showing this dude's picture 30 times a day. Don't focus on his
CNN
manifesto.
is not responsible for mental health services.
Certainly
and providing
not.
that, right? So the problem is, if you take 10 lives, take a life, take 20, there is something wrong with you, right?
Agreed.
Most likely.
Agreed.
So whenever you poll the country and people, want to know, okay, listen, and to, lots of folks' responses to the latest, shooting of the week, if you will, because it happens in this country every week.
Every day, it seems like.
The response that Americans have is, all right, how do we find a way, because we find a way to fix a lot of things in this country. To your point about let's just get stuff done. Nuts and bolts, mechanics, let's govern. But for some reason on this issue, we refuse to take that let's govern approach, right? So
I agree with that.
When you poll the country as to what may be the right policy prescriptions, it is, okay, we understand there are several loopholes out there when it comes to background checks. I'm not saying, and we can go right down the rabbit hole of, what shooting prevented or not, but as a baseline, we should establish that if you're going to buy a weapon, whether it be at a gun show or, at your local gun shop, there should be a background check along with some sharing of mental health data.
I agree.
That's widely supported by the American public, but that's not the case right now nationwide.
No, it's not.
So, I'm not a big fan of feel-good policy. Never have been, never will be. But you can't stare down these tragedies and think that they're the price of freedom.
And I don't think that. But to circle back, when you say that the media is not responsible, that's where I say I disagree, because
I'm not. That's the first thing you cited.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm not saying that they're not responsible. I'm tempted to, but I'm not. They're not the number one source of responsibility.
No, I don't believe I said that they are.
That's where you went immediately.
That is where I went immediately, because they give a lot more time than I think they should, focused on the individual who commits the crime versus the victims, versus the families, versus the needs to address.
I think coverage is ridiculous.
It is.
I agree.
I mean,
I'm not saying that's why folks kill people, though.
No, but I am saying that is where people get ideas to do it, because they see, look, if I'm feeling so bad about myself mentally, I'm depressed or I'm whatever, and I feel that no one pays me attention, that the world doesn't care about me, that I need to feel vindicated in some way, shape, or form, and I turn on the TV and I see every news channel is talking about this one guy killed 30 people,
Yeah.
and look at how much they're now paying attention
I'm
to this one guy.
disgusted by it.
You know, now
And
I, as that
people
individual,
also
might think,
used
I
to
could do
say
it
that,
too.
movies and rap music,
Yeah,
and
right,
video
yeah,
games,
exactly,
so that to me is kind of like one of those ancillary. Yeah, they probably are some sort of a catalyst, but at the source, if
Maybe
you
it's
want
a
to get down
proximate
to the
cause instead of
problem,
an actual cause.
you're right. At the core, it's less about a video game or
Pulling out the legal terms.
Oh yeah.
Well, no, and I guess to kind of wrap a bow on this discussion, I think part of what Brent's getting at and what you're getting at is, if you both take a pragmatic look at the issue, I think if I can speak to what Brent I think is getting at, if I can put words in his mouth, is if we're going back to what you're saying pragmatically, what policy prescriptions
Yes.
are out there. I think it's just too bad. It's unfortunate that people haven't been able to focus and drill down on mental health issues and those extremely popular ways in which gun control can be, or gun safety measures, whatever you want to call them, can be, revised to be more efficient. Maybe not adding more and more law to the books, but make them more efficient.
Absolutely.
And I guess, if I can continue to put words in your mouth, the
Let me just speak for you.
We don't even.
I'll just get off the set.
Yeah, there we go.
We don't even need Brett next week.
The fact is that, what really can, I mean, yes, we can certainly try to influence media to be better stewards of the First Amendment.
There
but
you go.
What really, I mean, policy-wise, can we do to you're not going to limit the press's ability to report, but you certainly can speak out and shame them in ways that hopefully
It's almost
would,
in my just again, by paying attention, in the wake of any sort of disaster, in the wake of any human tragedy, there is an almost immediate knee-jerk policy response.
Yeah.
Right? I'm saying, and to be honest, a lot of those things have had merit and have worked. For some reason, in the wake of mass shootings, there is, instead of a knee-jerk reaction to get serious, and there's a knee-jerk reaction to go it is an emphatic no is the reaction from a lot of politicians in the wake of
well,
that's
or everybody retreating to
there's
their,
no panacea,
their
there's
corners.
no silver bullet, no pun intended.
Yeah.
No.
But there literally is there has to be, and I actually go back to your point about the bully. There could be some economic solution to it, right? I mean,
I'm
if
sure
you
there
want
is.
to,
I'm sure there is.
if you want to,
You go the free market route.
lessen, I guess, gun ownership. Now again, folks, in some camps would say that criminals get bullets regardless. Just
Oh,
like
yeah,
people
they
would say
get
about
guns regardless, I mean.
but I don't know. There has to be some way that folks get in a room that, they're not, just politically motivated, and there has to be some maybe apolitical policy prescription to this problem. There has to be.
I think we need a better brand of politician, so it's not political when they get in the room.
Yeah.
I agree.
And
Well-
we don't have that caliber of people
Probably
running
not.
our nation, in my opinion.
As soon as more millennials and Gen Xers take over, then we'll
Yeah, then maybe we
a
will.
little bit more dramatic.
I think that's a good point. If you
Yeah.
look at polling on these issues, I mean, 35 and under are way more in the camp of let's do something about it versus folks that are 35 and older. I'm not saying like liberal partisan positions.
Yeah, no.
It's just like
This
let's
is an age.
come
Yeah.
on, and they're
Well,
less.
and I think there's an idea of it's definitely a pragmatic approach. We grew up in a world where it seems like there was a technological advance to solve every problem.
Yeah.
Where there's got to be some smart way that we can all win
Yeah.
to fix this problem.
Yeah.
But
Agreed.
not to get mired down in that debate, I did want to briefly touch on Carmel, Indiana, passed its LGBT protections. It's a new ordinance that adds the gay and lesbian, transgender community to its civil rights protections up there. And Indianapolis has had that for a couple years now. Not sure, I don't recall when that passed.
Maybe more than a
About
couple years.
10 or 11,
Is it
12
been 10
years
or
maybe
11
now.
years?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was under the prior administration.
Oh, was it?
when that
Okay,
was
I
enacted,
couldn't
yeah.
recall whether that was something under Ballard or...
No, that was
previous
under
administration.
Peterson.
Under
yeah.
Peterson,
But I know Ballard
hugely
supports
supported
those.
by Ballard, and
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
he's been a great sort of champion of equality in
Yeah.
the city. So
Yeah.
So that's just kind of a nice a news story to touch on. I don't know that you all have any thoughts
Well,
on
if you
it, but-
noticed that, though, weeks ago when they wanted to try to get it passed, all 7 counselors had said, yes, I'll vote for it as it stands right now. And then people start whining and complaining, and it passed by by a vote of 1. So what happened in 2 months that they went, yes, this is the right thing to do, to, well, no, I don't want to do it. And I will posit this.
Those other
they want to
three-
get reelected.
Yeah, those
right?
other 3
So they got to
Back to your
pander.
point.
You got to
Yeah.
pander now. And that's the unfortunate aspect of politics. Is
Yeah.
people want to pander. But
Yeah.
that's where if you get people that want to do something as opposed to want to be somebody, you will get a higher class of individual.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then also, I guess the last thing I'll bring up is just if you had any thoughts on the mayor's race coming up. We know November we've got
3rd,
November
right?
3rd
Yeah.
is election
Yeah.
day here in Indianapolis. Whether you had any thoughts on the mayoral race.
I think it's unfortunate that the candidates have not agreed on more debates, more joint public appearances, and they have gone out and done joint public appearances. One camp uses that as the reason to not have or to not need more debates. I would say that is the wrong analysis because at the events where they have gone and discussed, it's an issue specific event. So they're there to talk about one thing. That's not a debate. And then to the other side, I wish we would see one of the candidates out knocking on more doors, going out to more areas where maybe he traditionally wouldn't go just due to the demographics, due to the politics of it. I will say this: both men are capable of being the next mayor. Both men are going to inherit a city that is moving forward, but both men could still do more to really get the citizenry engaged, to let the citizenry know who they are, what they stand for, and most importantly, what they want to do and why. Sure. Repeating talking points doesn't give me a good idea of the substance of the individuals. Now, luckily, I know them both personally, so I can gauge them on them much better. But if you're not involved like I am, what are you going off of? Sound bites, talking points? That doesn't give you the essence of what these individuals want to do and how they're going to do it. So getting out there more, I cannot stress this enough. Get out and vote. We have some of the most pathetic voting turnout rates in history.
Worst in the country last election in the state.
It's ridiculous.
Yep.
And then the people that don't go vote are often the one that are whining about, well, God, look, all these politicians are the same. Well, then get out there and vote for the one that is least negative to your cause, Even
Small moves.
small increments,
Yeah, you
but
can't claim to have a stake.
if you don't
get
care.
off.
And then when you ask them, well, why didn't you go vote? I didn't have time.
Yeah.
Really? Because by law, you get 2 hours off of work to go vote, so that the whole time issue is not really playing
or
to
early
me.
voting or
Yeah, or
whatever.
early
Yeah.
voting.
We started today, by the way.
I voted
so
today. I mean,
There you go.
immediately, first
There it
thing.
is. Yeah.
Well, this is the point of the show where I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to tell anybody about anything coming up that you've got. If you want to plug any events coming up that the mayor's office is excited about or that you personally are looking forward to maybe this weekend or next week?
No specific events. I would just recommend get downtown, enjoy the city. There's a lot of events going on. Georgia Street is always happening. Mass Ave, the Fountain Square. There's just if you live outside of the kind of the downtown circle area, if you will, get downtown. You're going to enjoy it. It's walkable. It's beautiful. There's a lot to do. We are a world-class city. We just sometimes still have this small town mentality, but we are one of the biggest and best at what we do, and so we should have our citizenry enjoy that.
Absolutely.
And the folks that live here and visit here, come on out. as far as that, I'm just gonna plug away for the next 2.5 months and then go figure out who will have me next.
I was gonna say,
if
big
at all,
big announcements.
Indy 11.
about-
Yeah, go back.
Yeah. I think they have a need for an intern or two, and I'm sure they'd hire me to do that.
Okay.
But,
If you go back, I'm gonna get sweet tickets from you. So I'm gonna
Perfect,
get that
perfect.
email address.
Or there
Indy
may be
11
a-
is listening. If you want to sell a suite, it's a mere $50,000 to buy a suite. So
that's it?
That's
Oh,
it.
come
So
on.
you're in.
All right. Yeah,
You're in
never
for
mind
double
then.
wide now.
Yeah.
If there's a political relapse in the future, you can break news on the podcast.
That there might be, and if it happens, it'll be in 2016. It'll be next year.
Okay.
So I'm seriously
We'll come
thinking
back
about it.
on then if
Yeah,
that's
stay tuned. Brent, anything you're looking forward to?
This weekend?
Yeah.
Gosh, no.
We talked about the Indy 11 games going on.
Indy 11.
There's a walk for Alzheimer's this Saturday. If anybody's interested, is one of the events I was looking at for this weekend on Saturday.
See, First Friday was last Friday, wasn't
was,
it?
yes.
The year off. So
Yep.
yeah, no, just
Okay.
probably playing a lot of FIFA 16.
Yeah,
There
I
you
know we
go.
didn't get
On
to
the
we didn't get to
PS4.
the IU football. Their painful loss to Ohio State, but it was what was expected.
We'll spend the whole next hour in the
Yeah,
next
yeah.
show on
There
that.
you go.
And the Colts' narrow victory, but
Oh,
we
boy.
could go on
I don't
about
wanna
that
talk
too.
about that.
Mark, anything you're looking forward to?
No, I'm good.
All right, thanks, Mark.
I'm good. He's looking forward to sitting at home doing nothing all weekend.
Yep.
But anyway, next week, and I'll take a point to bring this up at our show next Tuesday is the Heartland Film Festival is not coming to town. It's always here, but it starts next week. So maybe, cross our fingers, we'll have somebody from their organization show up and talk about that. So
Awesome.
Otherwise, that's all we got this week, folks. Thanks a lot for listening.
Carlos, thanks, man.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
There's a black cloud rising, broad and wide, like a dark horizon before my eyes. Better pray for peace, guard my kin, 'cause the thunderhead is rolling in.